why should trans people be at Barnard, right? That's probably one of the pieces that's in here for all of you. I mean, in my opinion, broadly right, because trans women are women, right? Because people are who they say they are. That's like a really big, fundamental, anti-transphobic feminist belief I have that I hope you share. But also because trans people are gender oppressed people. And this is what the mission, I think, of places like Barnard is about, right? Trans people are intensely marginalized in education and employment, are intensely poor because of this, and highly criminalized, right? If what I hope Barnard is about is lifting people into education who have that door slammed in their face because of harmful norms about gender, this is a group of people we really want to be making a pathway here for. In the same way that I also think Barnard should really prioritize Indigenous people, people with disabilities, people of color, immigrant people, all the people who specifically are going to experience gender oppression in higher ed in a sharpened, heightened way, right? Just to share some stats about the kinds of broader context of trans people. A few years ago, kind of the biggest study that's ever happened of trans people and discrimination happened in the US, and they found some really wild things, like 78% of people in the survey had been harassed in K through 12, and 35% had been assaulted, physically assaulted. 35% of trans people have been physically assaulted during their K through 12 experience. Like, that's so shocking to me. 15% dropped out because of that harassment. I think a broader set also drops out because of other forms of school push out related to racism, ableism, etc. 90% of trans people have experienced some kind of discrimination in their job or have had to hide in order to prevent it, right? That's a huge number. Trans people in general have double the unemployment rate of the general population, and trans people of color have 4 times the unemployment rate of the general population. 26% of trans people have lost a job because of their gender, and a fifth of trans people have been homeless in their lives. So, like, if we're just talking about, like, trying to make sure that people who are experiencing gender oppression get access to higher ed and all the things that can come with higher ed, right? This is a population that Barnard really wants to be serving, not intensely stopping from attending, which is the current situation. To me, the real purpose of this space and of what women's colleges are now is to address gender oppression in education, and it's aspirational purpose, right? It's a purpose of trying to serve people who are underserved in higher education, to provide access to a set of tools and experiences that people are blocked from. And it's not a purpose will ever end. We'll consistently be, I mean, trans people are not the only people excluded from this space, right? Like, that is not, right, trans women are not the only people who are not getting access to Barnard. Barnard is an elite private education. There's a lot of different ways in which people are kept out, right? This is one of those vectors, right? But what we want to be doing is having that aspirational project of saying, how can Barnard be looking always to figure out how to be a space that provides access to education to people who gender oppression and all of its complicated interactions with racism, colonialism, ableism, capitalism, et cetera, produce populations that do not have access to higher ed that want it, or produce a space inside Barnard that's hostile to certain students, or that denies certain kinds of knowledge and education and produces other forms of parts of their curriculum as enhanced, right? So that is this transformative vision that we could have for Barnard, right? That I think that people have at different levels in the alumni population, in the faculty, staff, and student populations. At the very least, Barnard should enforce a transphobic policy. Even if we can't all agree with aspiration, we just, at the very least, it's vitally important that we not have major institutions that we are part of be articulating a politics that is absolutely deadly to certain populations. The logic that says trans people are not who we say we are, that says trans women are not women, that says it's okay to tell people what gender they should be, is the same logic that produces all the stats I read earlier about trans people's marginalization and literally produces early death for trans people. So we don't want this institution to have a message that aligns with something deadly for a very vulnerable population. That's gotta go. Even if we can't all agree to the aspirational vision of having Barnard really reach the most underserved populations, which I think and hope we would.